yo, there's some crazy stuff going on overseas. Let's take a look at it.
About the U.S. authorizing Ukraine to use their weapons and NATO weapons to conduct deep strikes in Russia.
First off, hold on, let me read this real quick, just in case there's anybody out there that can't see it. TikTok videos be kind of small. I get it, I understand. Biden rejects Putin threat over long-range missile strike inside Russia. Russia kicked out UK diplomats for spying and calls for Russian diplomats to return home from the U.S. Massive amounts of recon between Norway and Iceland in the North Sea. Russia has evacuated all of its Black Sea fleet from their bases out to sea. Russia sends sub-hunter to Alaska. It's a lot of stuff going on.
So Biden said, quote, "I do not accept the version that the bombing of targets in Russia with Storm Shadow missiles will be tantamount to the start of a NATO war with the Russian Federation." And he made this statement after a meeting with the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. So this is very, very serious, guys. Okay, Biden rejecting Putin's threats. Okay, Putin said that if the U.S. and NATO authorize the use of their long-range weapons to conduct deep strikes in Russia, it would be the same thing as NATO striking Russia, because according to Putin, Ukraine does not have the capability to operate these weapons, and therefore Putin believes that it's NATO that's operating these weapons. So, guys, this is extremely serious, and what's also serious is that Russia has evacuated all of their Black Sea fleet from their ports. It means that Russia is preparing for a possible massive strike on Ukraine. When that's going to be, I have no idea. But this is very, very concerning. It could be that they move them out of the port and put them on high alert in case Ukraine does conduct deep strikes on Russian territory with NATO weapons. They would use these ships to retaliate and strike either NATO or Ukraine. 48 hours, Russia sent some maritime surveillance and submarine hunting aircraft to the Alaskan ADIZ. Okay, that's the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. Apparently, the aircraft remained over international waters and did not cross into the U.S. or Canadian airspace during their flight. So, Russia sending maritime surveillance and submarine hunting aircraft to Alaska in the last 48 hours. They sent a pair of these planes twice in the last 48 hours, and we actually sent a B-52 up there, and I don't know if that was related to this or something else. Now, we're hearing some very concerning news that the family of Russian Ambassador Anatoly Antonov has reportedly left the U.S. and returned to Russia. And we're hearing that the families of other senior diplomats from Russia's embassy in Washington and its consulate in New York have also reportedly departed the U.S. this week. According to sources familiar with Russian diplomatic operations in the U.S., the remaining senior diplomats from Russia are now operating with skeleton staffing levels at both the embassy and the consulates. Okay, so that is a huge sign that war is about to break out possibly between NATO and Russia. A lot of high priority reconnaissance over Europe again over the last 48 hours. Here you can see a high priority reconnaissance plane that took off from Mildenhall in the UK, went all the way up to the Murmansk Oblast, and this is where Russia has their northern fleet base. That's where they have 2/3 of their nuclear armed submarines. So we just sent a high priority reconnaissance plane that sends intelligence information directly to the president and our top generals to Russia's largest nuclear armed submarine base. Okay, so what is going on over here that has us sending a high priority reconnaissance plane? Obviously something, okay? Obviously we're trying to snoop on the activity there and see how many Russian nuclear armed subs are in port that tells us the readiness level of Russia's nuclear forces. If they have, let's say, 4 or 5 submarines in port, it means that they're basically in a normal status. But if there's maybe no Russian nuclear armed subs in port, or maybe just 1 or 2, it means that the Russian nuclear forces are on high alert and they've sent out their subs into the oceans for preparations for some kind of an escalation. And also a lot of reconnaissance here around Iceland, which I think could be tied to this action over here, sending the high priority reconnaissance to Murmansk. Lots of NATO reconnaissance activity in this area in the Norwegian Sea. This is an area where Russian subs have to transit through in order to get into the Atlantic. They have to go through this passage between Iceland and Norway. Okay, so it's like a little choke point here. And we've been sending AWACS planes and sub hunters basically every single day for the last week or so into this area. So something's going on over here. Here's another AWACS plane. And I want to just show you guys this B-52 that went all the way up to Alaska earlier today. And I don't know if this is related to the Russian surveillance aircraft that went up there. But this B-52 took off from Barksdale in Shreveport, Louisiana, and went all the way up to Alaska and then turned around and came back. At the same time, we also had this sub hunter off the coast of Washington State, and it was flying super low off the coast of Washington State. Now, one thing about Washington is we have our largest nuclear armed submarine base here in the Puget Sound at Bangor Kitsap Base. That's where we have 2/3 of our nuclear armed subs, and that's also where...
Yeah, noted. Will not be moving to Seattle or Washington. They got all them nukes up there. Nah, I'm good.
We have our Trident missile storage site. So this is a critically important area for national security and for nuclear war. So it makes sense that they would patrol this area. It's possible that Russia is snooping on our nuclear armed subs just like we are doing to them, and they want to see our force posture, our nuclear force posture. And then we also had an aerial refueler go down into the Baja California area, which is pretty unusual. And this evening we had a P-8 Poseidon sub hunter off the coast of Poland and the Baltic countries here, patrolling Kaliningrad yet again. So, guys, things are about to get crazy. Here we have a Russian Air Force plane that went to Kaliningrad from mainland Russia. Here we have a French Air Force plane that landed in Lithuania. Tons of reconnaissance and fighter jet activity here in the North Sea. Just lots and lots of activity in this area. Here's another AWACS plane near Iceland. Here's another AWACS plane going to Iceland. And then we had a lot of reconnaissance in northern and eastern Poland, all around Kaliningrad. We had a high priority reconnaissance plane, a combat scent that flew around Kaliningrad. And at the same time, we had a Swedish reconnaissance plane patrolling the Baltic Sea, northern Poland, eastern Poland, and then another U.S. reconnaissance plane patrolling eastern Poland here, okay? So things are really spiraling out of control. Here's a picture of the Russian surveillance aircraft that circled Japan for the first time in 5 years. And we have some crazy weather.
Man, look, I am not ready for WAR. If that's what's finna happen, I'm not ready for it. Y'all ready for it? Because what he's talking about seems like it's pretty imminent. And something's about to happen between Russia and NATO. You know, basically Russia, United States, you know, and all of their partners. So something to keep an eye out for.